I'm going to talk about modelling the SS United States. This is part one of a two-part story. So the SS United States, this was a fast ocean liner designed for transatlantic crossings, and it earned the Blue Riband for her maiden voyage in 1952, and her record has not been beaten. Underneath the very fine exterior of SS United States was a ship also configured for emergency use as a troop transport in time of war. And she was fast enough to outrun submarine threats, and she had extensive fire safety and damage control measures built into her from the outset. So she could deliver a 14,000-man division worldwide without refueling. But most of her career was spent transporting celebrities and various people back and forth across the Atlantic. She stopped operating in 1969, due mainly to the competition from air travel, and since then has decayed and passed through several unprofitable businesses and really fallen into a bad state of disrepair. But she is now being partly restored. Some elements of the ship are going to be preserved and put into a new museum complex, which will celebrate the United States and other ocean liners. But most of the ship will be taken out off the Florida coast and dismantled to become an artificial reef. About 10 months ago, the dismantling process was well underway. And I saw some pictures on social media of the ship being taken apart, particularly this stage here where the funnels were being removed. And that just inspired me to try and make a model of the ship in this particular state to celebrate her career and hopefully her future. The only viable baseline model of the ship is the aging Revell 1/600 scale ship. This was first moulded and released in 1955, and the mould has not been updated since then, even though the kit has been reboxed and resold by Revell many times during the intervening years. I managed to pick up an example of the 2016 rebox on eBay. That was £40, which is quite a lot for a very old kit, and I set about planning the build. Since it was a very old Revell kit, one of the earliest ships that they actually produced as a model company, the model was fairly crude. It's 18 inches long, which is quite a nice size for adaptation. And because it was a 1950s origin, it meant much of the details, such as railings and lifeboats, was very coarsely moulded and integrated with the hull sides. So what I had to do was to saw that coarse detail away. There wouldn't be any need for lifeboats because the ship is in a partially dismantled state. And so that was a fairly straightforward conversion. I then bought a 1/600 scale civil vessel photo etch set from Atlantic Models in the UK. It's one of the few sources that provides 1/600 scale photo etch of civilian railings and ladders and stairways. And my aim, as I said, is to model the ship after the two funnels have been removed. And this will expose some of the interior, so we'll have to scratch build the interior that's been revealed by the removal of the funnels. And I'm also going to scratch build the barge, taking one of the funnels away, because it makes a nice little vignette to go alongside the main ship itself. The rest of the ship will be finished in a suitably distressed state. And this gives me lots of opportunity to experiment with weathering techniques, which, as many of you will know, I quite enjoy taking to the ultimate limit. The decks have decayed to either a sort of russet red, rusty finish, as you would expect, or in some areas there seems to be a sort of grey-green mouldiness over the surfaces. And underneath that, there seems to be rusty deck plates. What I tend to use are rust compounds, commercially available ones that can create a very good rust effect. And I tend to add acrylic inks, green and white in particular in this case, to provide the alternate staining finish. And so at the moment, the model is something like this. It's partway through the build. The basic surfaces of the decks on top have been coloured and the rust compounds have been put on to give a bit of a mottled effect. And the hull, as you will begin to see, has been built up with many, many layers of paint. What I tend to do is a fairly routine approach to decayed steel plating. So first of all, I start off with an underlay of mottled rusty colours. I then add chipping medium and then overcoat it with blue-black shades of very thin, transparent paint. And then I scrape away vertically. If you use a damp cotton wool bud and stroke it downwards, the dampness of the cotton wool tends to moisten the paint and the chipping medium, which allows it to flake off. And by doing it in a vertical sort of motion, you tend to get the characteristic effect of the slightly decaying plates with the vertical erosion on them. And then for hull plating, which is quite noticeable on the ship itself, I tend to take the first effect of weathering. I then tape over partially the side of the hull in strips of masking tape that are the right width for the hull plates, then overpaint, then move the strips of masking tape around again, do a bit of weathering, overpaint, do the same again, do that 3 or 4 times, and you end up with the picture that you can see below, which is distressed hull with hull plating visible, but in a sort of slightly mottled fashion. And you can adapt this technique to make it either very, very noticeable or very, very subtle. And the current state of the model is like this. I've taken a pause on the model at the moment because I'm doing 1 or 2 other models for other people, but I've built up the funnel areas. When I sliced the funnels off the original model, it left some very ungainly gaps, and that had to be built up by plasticard to show the proper shape for the ship as it is in the state I want to model it. The model funnels were not very accurately reproduced by Revell, so I had to build up with plasticard to adapt those as well. And I will continue this in about 3 or 4 months' time when hopefully I will have finished the model itself. And that's the end.